Today, we're diving into something I'm super excited about. We're looking at some truly fascinating psychological principles and mental models that honestly, quietly shape how we think, how we feel, and how we behave every single day. The core concept we're unpacking challenges basically everything we've been taught about how to be happy. It's incredibly powerful when you think about it. What if happiness isn't some physical destination you eventually arrive at, but rather an internal framework? It's not just about what happens to you, right? It's entirely about how you actively interpret what happens to you.
So, what if happiness isn't actually something you find? Most people spend years, literally sometimes decades, trapped in this exhausting cycle. We chase the next achievement, the next shiny purchase, maybe the next relationship, fully believing that once we finally secure it, we're going to feel complete. But then, we get there, and that feeling, it's fleeting. So why does it feel so temporary? Well, it's because we're looking for it in completely the wrong place.
Okay, let's dive into this. There's a massive difference between finding happiness and understanding happiness. Finding happiness is this exhausting act of constantly waiting for the next big milestone to somehow grant you permission to be happy. But understanding happiness, that's the realization that joy actually comes from how you actively interpret your everyday life. Shifting your mindset from passively waiting for joy to actively understanding it, it will completely change your perspective on life. And frankly, it just makes life start making a whole lot more sense.
All right, let's get into phase one, the trap of tomorrow.
Have you ever felt deeply frustrated because joy just seems like it's perpetually out of reach, like it's always hovering somewhere in your future? It's really because we've been conditioned to postpone our lives, and this brings us to Parkinson's law. Now, traditionally, this rule says that work expands to fill the time available. Think about the last time you had a whole month to clean out your garage, right? Somehow you ended up doing it in a total panic 2 hours before your in-laws arrived. The work expands to fit the deadline. But here's the mind-bending part. This applies to happiness too. We unknowingly expand our timeline for happiness by constantly postponing it. We tell ourselves, oh, I'll be happy when I lose weight or make more money or, find the right person. We push the deadline out and we expand the wait time indefinitely.
And that perfectly ties into our second concept, the arrival fallacy. This is the dangerous and very common illusion that true, permanent happiness exists at the finish line of a specific goal. We convince ourselves that once we reach that final destination, life's going to finally be complete, and we can just stop striving. But, as we just learned from Parkinson's law, because we treat happiness like a reward for future success, that finish line is an absolute illusion. It just doesn't exist the way our brains think it does.
Honestly, we've all been on this exact treadmill. You graduate from school and you think, yes, I've finally made it. But almost immediately the goalpost shifts to getting a promotion. Then you get the promotion and suddenly you can't be happy until you buy a house. Then it's the next goal and the next. Every single time you reach one milestone, another one mysteriously appears, and happiness just keeps moving further and further away. Whole decades can pass while you wait. So the huge lesson here is to stop treating joy as a future reward. We have to learn to enjoy today's small victories, like, a great conversation or a peaceful morning. Because if happiness always lives in tomorrow, you're literally never going to reach it.
Moving on to phase two, filtering out the noise.
Now, you've likely heard of the famous 80-20 rule, but have you ever actually applied it to your own joy? In life, a surprisingly small number of things create the vast majority of our happiness. Roughly 80% of your joy and positive results come from just 20% of your causes, relationships, and habits. Just think about it for a second. Only a few close friends actually provide real, unconditional support. Only a handful of daily habits actually boost your mood and energy. Yet we waste hours and hours on the other 80%, worrying about the opinions of strangers, chasing digital distractions, filling our schedules with empty noise. Listen, happiness comes from simplifying. Less noise, more signal. You really have to focus relentlessly on your vital 20%. And speaking of noise, here's a hard truth for us. Nobody is watching you. Okay, have you ever said something awkward at a party or in a meeting and then literally lay in bed replaying it in your head for hours? Just absolutely terrified that everyone noticed your mistake? Yeah, me too. That is called the spotlight effect. As humans, we naturally, and completely incorrectly, assume that everyone around us is paying super close attention to our every move, just scrutinizing our flaws. But here is the very comforting reality of what people are actually doing. They're worrying about themselves. They forget your mistakes in a matter of minutes because they are entirely focused on their own lives and their own insecurities. Way too many people limit their lives, avoid amazing opportunities, and hide their true personalities simply because they fear judgment.
Once you truly internalize that everyone is just self-focused, you become incredibly free. You can finally stop performing for an audience that isn't even watching and just start living authentically.
Next up, focus on the controllables.
So this is the circle of control framework. One of our absolute biggest sources of daily unhappiness is wasting massive amounts of energy on things we simply cannot change, like the economy, the distant future, or what other people are doing. So try these 3 steps instead. Step 1, identify exactly what is stressing you out. Step 2, ask yourself directly, is this actually inside my control? Step 3, if no, let it go. If yes, take action. Let's say you're stuck in a massive traffic jam. The traffic itself, totally out of your control. Getting angry about it changes literally nothing. But your reaction? That's completely in your control. You can choose to put on a great explainer, or just listen to some music. Redirecting your energy away from the uncontrollable gives you immediate peace. Just worry less and act more.
Let's transition into phase 3, rewire your daily perception.
This brings us to confirmation bias. Look, your brain acts exactly like a search engine. Whatever you ask it to find, it will relentlessly look for. If you walk around telling yourself that life is unfair, your brain is going to constantly search for and highlight examples proving it's unfair, completely ignoring the good parts. If you believe people don't like you, you're going to fixate on every tiny perceived rejection and ignore every warm compliment. But if you start believing that growth is possible, you immediately start seeing progress. Your beliefs shape your physical reality because the entire world is filtered right through the stories you tell yourself internally. Change the search query, and you literally change the results. It's a real game changer.
And this is deeply connected to the Dunning-Kruger effect. This explains why beginners often wildly overestimate how much they know, while genuine experts actually underestimate themselves because they realize exactly how much there is left to learn. Now, why does this matter for your happiness? Because highly intelligent, capable people often spend their entire lives needlessly doubting themselves, constantly comparing their internal uncertainty to the loud, overconfident beginners around them. True wisdom is recognizing that learning never actually ends. You don't need to know everything on day 1, and you certainly don't need to be perfect. Give yourself permission to be a lifelong learner. Happiness flourishes when you drop that exhausting demand for perfection and just choose to stay curious.
Which brings us to perhaps one of the most critical ideas we're covering today, hedonic adaptation. This principle dictates that humans incredibly quickly get used to improvements in their lives. You know that brand new, highly anticipated phone you desperately wanted? Yeah, after a few weeks, it quickly becomes just a normal phone. The dream car you worked years for? Normal. Even major life achievements, like a huge salary bump, eventually just become your everyday reality. The brain simply adapts. The initial excitement inevitably fades, and you're immediately thrown right back onto that endless treadmill, aggressively chasing the next shiny thing.
So the crucial point is, how do we possibly stop this endless, exhausting cycle? Well, the ultimate antidote is gratitude. When you regularly, actively appreciate what you already have right in front of you, you successfully short-circuit hedonic adaptation. You stop taking your remarkable life for granted. Remember, a lot of the things you consider completely normal today, a warm roof over your head, your supportive friends, your basic health, were once things you only wished for. Gratitude doesn't mean you stop growing or striving for better. It just means you learn to appreciate the present moment while you build your future.
And that leads us to our final takeaway. The journey is the goal.
As we bring all these concepts together, we kind of arrive at this ultimate realization. Happiness is rarely one giant cinematic moment that suddenly makes everything right. It's a daily, quiet collection of small perspectives and habits repeated over and over again. There is a brilliant quote that perfectly sums this all up. Happiness isn't found at the destination, it's found during the journey. It's found in learning new things, growing through failures, laughing with your friends, and creating meaningful memories along the way. The goals you set absolutely matter, for sure, but the person you become while you are fiercely pursuing those goals matters infinitely more. You aren't just building a resume, you're building yourself.
So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. We've looked at Parkinson's law, the 80-20 rule, the spotlight effect, the circle of control, and a bunch of other really powerful concepts today. The quality of your life depends largely on the quality of your thoughts. So which of these mental models will you actively apply today to start rewiring your brain? Don't just sit back and wait for happiness to magically happen to you. Choose one idea right now, today, and start building it. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.